All right, Mr. Olson.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Well, Commissioners, I'm happy to be here this afternoon. I'm glad we could get this done in light of our little snowstorm. This is important, and this is something we've been working on for some time now, and I'm excited to be able to present this to our Commissioners and to our public as well. So today we're going to talk about our ADA title definitions, our structure, and how we're doing it here at the county, what we are as a county required to provide. We're here to talk about the transition plan, talk about our budget a little bit, some project details, how we're going to implement our plan, and then give some great examples of some of the things we've done so far to date, and especially this year. We've had a big year. So ADA actually has 5 different titles in working with Americans with Disability Act. Primarily those titles that we are responsible for at the county are Title I, which is employment, Title II, state and local governments, and Title IV, which is telecommunications. Title I being primarily with EBMS. For those that don't know, that's our benefits division for El Paso County. We are required to, for employees that have certain needs, to address those needs and to help them on how to do their jobs and fulfill their positions here at the county. While this is done through EBMS, we often work with them on how to help them and make assessments for them. Title II is what we're here primarily to talk about today, focuses on programs, public programs, and access to public facilities. And then Title IV, we do deal with it's primarily like with the sheriff's office and dealing with dispatch, 911, things to that nature. I guess as I go, feel free to ask questions. As we get done, I'll leave the floor for questions of the commissioners and any comments or questions from the public as well. So today, I've got a big list of people here today. I really appreciate all the departments. It's really been a collaborative effort to put this transition plan together. As you know, it's a big county. We have 2,100 miles of roads that we service, 260 plus bridges, over 20 parks, open spaces, over 125 miles of trails, 8,000 acres of parkland. Within facilities, and the department that I oversee is over, we have 132 buildings, over 3 million square feet. So all this, we really need to make sure that ADA is an important part of our process to make sure that all of our citizens have equal accessibility to our public facilities, and parks, and roads, right-of-way, all that good stuff. So I want to say, here we have listed on the board here, my name here is, I'm the Executive Director for County Facilities. ADA is housed under County Facilities, but while it's under County Facilities, it's something that stretches across the board through all county departments. Vince Masinskis is here. He oversees the division of ADA. We have David Mejia, who's our ADA specialist, and Mr. Jose Toledo, he's our ADA project manager. I appreciate in doing this process. Again, we've had a lot of people help us. County Attorney's Office, Diana May, and Lisa Kirkman has really gone through to help review these things, and we'll continue to review these as we go forward to make sure that we're have all the pieces we need to have legally within ADA. Community Services, also known as our parks. Tim Wolkin's been part of this. Brian Bobeck is here, Todd Martz, we work with them on parks and trails and how we work with them in parks, and they work closely with us. Department of Public Works, of course, Scott Cuthbertson is here. He's our executive director. Jennifer Irvine, county engineer, and Matthew Johnson. More of their team have been involved, but I don't have enough space in this whole slide to put everybody in there, but I want to put a shout out to them. And last but definitely not least is Mr. Craig Dossie. So planning and community development is a lot of new construction development. His department is key to a lot of that is with ADA. So I don't like to read from slides, but I'm going to read this top one because it's so important. So as far as county requirements, El Paso County believes that people with disabilities are entitled to all privileges, opportunities, rights, and advantages that others have when participating in civic activities. Equal treatment is a fundamental right of every person living with a disability. this is important to state because we do believe this. We have to do this, but we all know it's the right thing and something we want to do. By federal law, the Department of Justice actually regulates ADA, and we are required to have an ADA specialist, again, which we do. It's Mr. Mejia. He's on our staff to perform a lot of our evaluations for county facilities. He works as, we do new construction and parks and trails. He's a good, part of the process to make sure that, again, ADA requirements are being met. Federal law requires that all states and local governments implement a transition plan. And again, that's what we're here to do today. The purpose of a transition plan is to really have a transparent form of media to show how we're doing our assessments, where the barriers are, and by barriers, the barriers are the issues that we find, barriers to, and just like it sounds, barriers to the public and how they can access our buildings, to access parks, to access programs, you name it. But this program, this transition plan, is set to show where those barriers are, how we're remediating those barriers, and again, doing it in a transparent format. So we have created a transition plan, and that's what we're here to do today, to both to present to our county commissioners and to the public. After this meeting today, we'll post this online and allow the actual transition plan to be reviewed. It's many pages, and it'll be a lot to post up here and to go through. We have, while we're doing this today, I want to make sure that our commissioners know and our community knows that this isn't the first time we've started doing something. We've been doing stuff for years. Part of the problem is we just haven't done a good job of giving ourselves credit for the things we've done. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. So, as I mentioned, our ADA specialist is working daily to assess our properties. In one example, he just completed the assessment of the courthouse, and to again find those barriers to the public and accessing those barriers or those facilities. He'll come forward to us and say, showing those, we'll go through them and decide which ones can. Sometimes there's barriers that can't be remedied. Maybe there's construction, pre-existing conditions that are there that don't allow us to make those repairs. But we always make our efforts to make those repairs for the community. Part of that, they review parks. They review park equipment, playground equipment, and so forth. So I want to explain as we do put forth this transition plan, it's always got room for improvement. But the purpose is, I want to say it's a working, living document. As we go forward, we'll always improve that process. We're always available to the public and to hear grievances and hear suggestions, and we'll continue to improve this plan with that. But the key is accountability, and we want to be accountable to our public and with our taxpayer money and showing what we're doing. And I mentioned here the plan will also discuss grievances, the grievance process, and how they can contact us with their issues, and we'll respond to them quickly and explain how we're trying to remedy that. So I want to go a little bit so our commissioners know and as our public may know is that we've understand some of the things that we're dealing with and how to improve our facilities. So parking lots is a big one. Identifying barriers in parking lots, how people can access our buildings, from the very parking lot into the building. We got approach and entrances to facilities. There's doors, ramps. Some of the things that our Mr. Mejia looks at, he'll measure the amount of pressure it takes to open doors. So it has to have a minimum of 5 pounds of pressure. He'll look at closing speeds. A door has to have a minimum of 5 seconds closing speed behind you as you close. And sometimes we'll also be looking at actuators and things to this nature. Public restrooms. I'll give you an example. We have a public restroom, as you know, upstairs here. We know it is not ADA compliant. I'm going to tell you that within a couple weeks, construction will begin to fix that. Okay, so these are things we're doing. Signage is important. And then miscellaneous access, water fountains, video phones, portable looping systems, such as that. I'm going to talk community services, which is parks, is just like us, they have facilities, which is primarily nature centers, picnic areas, grilling areas, playgrounds. They also need to be compliant, not just the types of equipment they have, but the surface that the kids and the people play on. Restrooms, signage and accessibility, and trails. Now, I mentioned we have 125 miles of trails, and we can look to repair those if it's feasible to do that. So next thing I want to talk, I'm going to give the microphone to Mr. Cuthbertson. He's the director for Department of Public Works to talk about what they're here to, some examples of their work as well.
Fine job. You could have just kept going, Brian. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Scott Cuthbertson, Executive Director of Public Works. As you know, ADA compliance in the right-of-way is a daunting task. Includes all the publicly owned easements, crosswalks, sidewalks, curbs, islands, right-of-way survey, and then it involves a lot of remediation, design, construction, and then anytime we do work in the right-of-way or conduct new construction, we have to become compliant. We recently did a pavement quality survey, invested some money in that, and as a part of that, we got imagery of most of our right-of-way, and recently we were able to expand upon that and get a contract to exploit the data that we already had, which will allow us to determine where we have these crossings, where we have these ped ramps, and then we can exploit that information, go out and do the measurements and surveys and determine the exact amount of detail, amount of work that has to be done on each of those tasks. And that is probably a several-year effort to identify it and determine the scope of it. But I don't want to mislead you. We are continuing and have for several years now. Whenever we go in and do curb and gutter improvements in preparation for pavement or pavement replacement, we will make these improvements in those areas. You'll see a slide later that talks about how much we have recently accomplished. Our approach within the department is a phased approach. We have sent some engineers and inspectors to the training to become more familiar with the requirements for ADA compliance. We'll have the training completed for all of our engineering staff by March of 2020. The engineering criteria manual is under revision right now, and we will make sure that it is compliant with the regulations as well. I mentioned the ongoing effort to identify our current assets, and we will then inventory those and begin measurements of them to determine the necessary steps to be taken with that. And then we'll continue to collect the attributes of those, and we'll have it done by 2022. And then at the end of 2022, we will have our program of projects that need to be accomplished and what that looks like and what the costs are associated with that. Brian, back to you.
I got a question.
Oh, or Craig.
Scott.
Hang on, Scott. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one question. Do our ADA compliant, say crosswalks, are we consistent throughout the county in terms of municipalities and the counties? So like for an example, somebody who's visually impaired, there's like little nubs at the corner. Are those the same in Colorado Springs as they are, say, in Widefield Security? And is the sound or crosswalk indicators for somebody with that the same in, say, Fountain and unincorporated?
So I think the answer to that depends on when the work was done. The standards have changed and evolved over time, and the requirement since about 13 or 14, I believe, has been that if you resurface the roadway, modify the roadway, you must become compliant to the current standard in that area. The goal is to have everything exactly the same everywhere, but that's probably a decades-long process to get there. Jen, did you want to add to that at all? No? Okay. I guess I got an A on that question. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Craig Dossey, Planning Community Development. We also interact with ADA. Oops, I just lost my screen. I'll read off of there. We are both hands-on and sort of hands-off. We are the front end of what ends up going into Scott's maintenance system. For the most part, when it pertains to public improvements. So we look at public improvements that are being constructed along with new development to make sure that those public improvements that the county will ultimately be accepting are compliant with the ADA requirements. So we look at it in a very hands-on approach when it comes to new development and public improvements, where we're really kind of forced to be hands-off as a result of federal law is when it pertains to private property. Up until about 2 years ago, our land development code really didn't address ADA compliance with exception to accessible parking spaces in parking lots. We did add a couple provisions into the land development code, specifically chapter 6, which talks about specific design requirements that pertain primarily to non-residential development. This is industrial, commercial, even institutional, where we added a requirement that all non-residential site development plans need to include a paragraph which essentially identified for the property owner that ADA accessibility is their responsibility under federal law. So our requirement is to have that paragraph on there, but it's highlighting that ADA accessibility is not just unique to the county, it's also a private property issue as well. We also included a requirement that the site plan has to show an ADA accessible exterior route. This is from the parking lots, this may be from a public space like a sidewalk to the front door. So we're kind of that in-between space between what Scott's group deals with on the public improvements and where regional building kicks in and internal to the structure. Again, we don't have primary authority over that, but what we've done is try to highlight that as much as we can in order to ensure that that's being accomplished on private property. Any questions for me? Thank you.
And I appreciate their Scott and Craig coming to talk here. A little bit, I guess I want to mention what Craig discusses. I'm talking about private property. Those are all discussed under Title III, under 88 Title III, and under their requirements and as a property owner to comply to ADA. There we go. All good. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so we just gave some examples of things that we are dealing with by departments, and some other examples that are relevant here at the county that we deal with is the Criminal Justice Center, the jail. We talk about transfer showers, and I can tell you that the showers are not ADA compliant in the jail. We are working on that right now. We're getting RFPs together on how to make adjustments to the jails and to the I guess those people that are incarcerated, so they can fairly, take showers and do the things they need to there in the jail. TTY, which is teletype, telecommunications, TDD. Ubi Duo it's a face-to-face portable computer that they're used there in the jail for I guess residents of CJC to talk to people that come to visit them. These are all typically for people that are hard of hearing, deaf, or speech disabled. We talked about the sheriff's office. Relay Colorado is one of those things that in text to 911. People that are again hard of hearing or deaf and speech disabled need that access to help them in the case of emergencies. The clerk and recorder's office. As you know, we're in the middle of elections, voting ballots. We need to make sure that they're sized for visually impaired, accessible to our VSPCs or our voting service and polling centers, voting booths, screen size, font size, all these things that we need to take in accountability. And I'm glad to say is that we've had people that have had grievances recently, and Mr. Mejia has helped Mr. Borman to assist in those situations. And I mentioned El Paso County to kind of a little broader is we have a county website, and they're required to be visually accessible for the visually impaired. As you know, we have an interpreter here today to help for those that are hearing impaired. There's a looping system here in our building. We have in several buildings that directs sound directly to people's hearing aids.
Can I stop you there for a second? Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you.
Hey, very comprehensive report. I appreciate it. I am leaping through it while you're talking, and there are several pages that have in big letters the word corrected. And I just want to make sure I understand what that means. That was an issue discovered that has been fixed. Is that what that means on that page?
The ones that are in bold print.
Yeah, the big bold blue print that you can see like this, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So in your plans, we've given you examples of site evaluations, and yes, sir. So things. So we in the plan we have to address barriers, but again, we have to also address things that have been corrected. And when this goes online after this meeting, those will be listed specifically on what kind of things that we've addressed.
So these are, in fact, things that we've identified and corrected. So when I see the corrected on the sheet, that issue is resolved, and there are other sheets here that don't have that.
That's correct. Those are the ones that we're still working on.
Okay.
Some of these things, we have the skills and the manpower in-house, so we can send my maintenance team to do those repairs. Some of them we would have to do to contract out to do those repairs, and of course that's based on budget and availability of funds as well. So we prioritize as the issues come up and we identify issues, we have to prioritize those based on funding and based on priority.
Yeah, thank you.
Getting in the front
now,
door.
There's still plenty of items in here to fix and address, but as I go through here, there's a lot of corrected items. There's a lot of things that we've already done.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, that's good.
And that's part of why we're here, is that we just haven't done a very good job of telling our story. That why there's we have, I mentioned we have over 3 million square feet of buildings and all the miles of road, and as a county goes, I think we're in pretty good shape still. I mean, that's not to say we don't have deficiencies and need to fix those, and we'll continue to do so. But as a county, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Move on. So, this is our budget, and for those that are not financially inclined, these can be a lot of mumbo jumbo. So what what I really want us to focus on here is this number right here. It's our operating budget. And so I appreciate our county commissioners, as our board of county commissioners here appropriated $600,000 to us last year to do projects. And I want our community to know that our board cares and we're doing things. And while we have a wide county to take care of, there is a priority here. So. Again, I appreciate that. We do have critical needs, as you know, in the budget presentations into 2020 for things that we need to do. And, some examples of those are the courthouse, for accessibilities in the courthouse, the fairgrounds, and of course, the Pikes Peak Center. The Pikes Peak Center, for those that know, is owned by the county, but is run by the World Arena. But again, we do have critical needs. A lot of this, I want to say, is that this team that we've put up, our ADA team, really, Mr. Mejia has been on staff for quite a few years. But we didn't have the project manager. We didn't have a good, I guess, program in place how to complete projects. So as of May, that's when we hired Mr. Toledo to be our project manager and to start, getting projects done. And to date, we've completed 48. We've repaired 48 barriers this year alone, in basically 6 months. And we'll have some examples of that for you and for the public to see some of the great things we've done. Here's some examples here of evaluations. You can see the things Mr. Mejia goes through our buildings to review everything in that building for accessibility. And you can see here, and this isn't, and I'll tell you, since we've created this slide, this has changed, okay? So they're always working on this stuff and things that will always be, I guess, adjusting the transition plan. But what you're looking at here, so I can explain, is right now we have basically open findings. We're thinking it's about $1.9 million for repairs of those, and that's 985 different barrier open findings we've got there. About 79,000 of those we've identified of things that can't be repaired, and really this is due to pre-existing conditions on a building, and just not feasible for us to get fixed. But it's not a lot in the scope of everything we're looking at here. So 2019, again, you see what we've got budgeted there, and the 500. It's again, I'm rounding to 600,000, but those are things we've identified this year. And as a board, I want you to understand that while the team's working hard, I don't suspect we'll get all those done this year, but we'll reappropriate those into 2020, and we'll have a full team working on these, and we'll get that money spent in 2020.
Commissioner Bremer.
Thank you. Thank you for this extensive information that's pretty detailed. Jumping to one of them just as an example, as we come across major construction projects, either planned or unplanned, like the Sawatch parking garage, are we doing our best to incorporate those changes even if they're not kind of slated for this year? If we have a major issue, are we trying to roll it all into fixing the compliance issues as well?
That's an excellent question, ma'am. I appreciate that. And the answer is yes. So if we're touching it, we need those. That's one of the top things that we need to be reviewing, because one, it saves money to do it that way, and saves time. So I can tell you that the parking garages are actually in good shape. A lot of that's more for putting in lines, putting in proper painting and those things. So, and the answer is yes. So the Castilla garage, we assess those to make sure they're in the proper place for access to the community. So absolutely.
Great, thank you.
So, thank you. All right. So today we're talking about the implementation of the plan. So today you've got a copy of the transition plan in front of you today. After this meeting, we'll post that on our website for the public to review. What we're asking is for a 30-day review time for public comment, and before we actually, I guess we'll make appropriate responses to those recommendations, and then we'll come before the commissioners after 30 days with a resolution to adopt that. Again, I just want to make. It's not the final. This isn't the final plan. As time goes on, we'll continue to improve this and update the website on a quarterly basis, showing the work that we've done, and again, any kind of barriers that we've identified as well.
Commissioner Van Werf?
So I appreciate that we've got a 30-day public comment period, and you said that you would be posting the plan this afternoon after this meeting, after this work session. So does that mean the 30 days start today, tomorrow? When do they officially start?
It'll start tomorrow. After this meeting, it's already towards the end of the day. It should be posted on the website by tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bremer?
As a part of the public input process, have we coordinated with many of our community partners and PPACG, Council on Aging, and others of those to let this community know that this is available for comment?
We have, and so we'll be posting this in newspapers and letting them know. Rocky Mountain ADA is here today. The Independence Center, we've talked to them to let them know this is happening. We've given them copies of this already to review. We've had, to this point, I don't want you to think that we got a bunch of people up here that have made this plan without any kind of, I guess, dog in the fight, or we went to people that are truly affected by with ADA every day, and they've helped us to do some of this stuff too. So, so the answer was a long answer, but yes, we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that's our plan today. I think it's important to show you that some of the work we've done. A lot of it you see here is on Spruce Street. The parking the lines were almost not even visible. So we've gone in there to reline the parking lot to be compliant with the number of spots and the size of the spots. You see there that the Black Forest Regional Park, we've done work there this year. Fountain Creek Nature Center, as I mentioned, the ground needs to be a stable ground that to be compliant. So, as you know, the Nature Center on Fountain Creek is a dirt parking lot, and it's appropriate. But what we've done is we've poured concrete there to be ADA compliant. That's under construction, it is complete at this point, and it's been lined at this point. Pikes Peak Regional OEM, as you know, is our regional OEM. We've already the parking lot. We actually poured concrete there to give it a compliant base. As I mentioned, the Pikes Peak Center is owned by us, but we work closely with DOT at the my gosh, I just forgot the name of the World Arena. Sorry. But the front entrance was not compliant, so we've poured you can see there were steps there, and we've taken those steps out, and we've poured a ramp there to give equal access to the front of Pikes Peak Center. Again, Widefield Park, you can see the parking lot. We've relined that and done some cover there. Example at the courthouse. For those who have been there, there's where the jurors assemble there. The restroom doors were big, heavy doors, and we've put in automated actuators there for the doors there. There's more work to do in the courthouse, and there's more work to do all over. I don't want anyone to think that we're done. This is just good examples. Widefield Park, you can see I appreciate parks working with us, and as they come and do parks and do improvements, they come and talk to us to make sure that these things are ADA compliant. But you can see we got ADA compliant swings, playground equipment, the restrooms. And a lot of people, my hope is as you walk into certain places, and this is kind of an eye-opening experience as you understand that there can be barriers, and one of those barriers is picnic tables. A lot of people don't think about it. If a picnic table, it's got an extra side to it, so if a person who's in wheelchairs can still access our picnic tables. And then Pikes Peak Center. We've done some work over there that I'm proud to say. One of those things is the loge. And so on the rear part of the Pikes Peak Center, there used to be a platform there, and we almost had, it was not ADA compliant. So we, actually my team, we went over there and we tore that out, and we've got ADA compliant seating for wheelchairs and companions. That's again on the back there, and that's now compliant. We've done things like in the I believe that's the women's restroom there, where the sink is and the faucet is compliant, so they can you don't need to turn valves and whatnot. You can run your hand over and run the water. And a lot of people again don't think about it, but if you notice as you come into the Pikes Peak Center, the countertops have been lowered for people that for accessibility purposes there as well. So I'm going to let the Department of Public Works talk a little bit about some of their things, as they can do it better than I can.
Thanks, Brian. Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County Engineer. Just a couple of good examples of some of the work that is continuously ongoing from Department of Public Works. And I would just add that not only do we do maintenance and design and construction for your right-of-way and your roadways, but we also support parks as they're going along and doing their capital improvements too. So these are just some examples of some of the work that we've done. The Galley Sidewalk project is actually one of our phased projects that we've been doing over time with Community Development Block Grant that this board has awarded to our department. And then the ADA ramp on Omaha. This is work that we're doing to support PPRTA and then our overlay program. And then just some other examples. What I'd say is that we are doing a good job of incorporating all of these improvements, not only with our maintenance program, but also with our capital program. And so these are just some examples of some of our work, but what we're also starting to do is track all of that work and making sure that we're capturing how much work we're actually doing every single year. This work comes in a variety of forms with a variety of different funding dollars, but part of the requirement that we have to do to stay compliant with our federal funds is making sure that we're compliant with our ADA program. So that's part of why it's so important, not only from just doing the right thing, but also making sure that we're compliant with our federal grants as well.
All right. Well, and that pretty much wraps it up. I'm going to back up. Something I forgot to mention that's important. Oops. So you'll see in here there's phases. We talk about the Department of Public Works, things that we know we need to do. I do want to say, while this is a good plan, we still have more work to do, and we know that, and we'll continue to do that. And one of those things is we're committing to develop a comprehensive plan for self-evaluations, for access to all county services, programs, activities. Examples of, as you know, we have a lot of programs, a lot of activities here, DHS, parks, we need to be reviewing those, and we know that, and so that's our next phase. We'll be going into that. So I don't know if you have any questions. I'm here to answer those, and I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any more questions for Brian? I know we were kind of asking those as we were moving along. All right, seeing none, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
I think what we'll do now is open it up for public comment on this work session. If there's somebody in the public that would like to speak on this, you can either come down to the podium and speak, or get one of the microphones from our one of our staff members upstairs. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this presentation today? All right, well, seeing none, I'm sorry, I didn't see you over there. And if you would, please sign in so we can have good accountability here. State your name, and then you may begin. And since you're the only person, you can speak as long as you want. 2 hours, 3 hours. No, I'm kidding.
Last time you said that.
I won't do that to you.
Took you up on it.
So I'm Emily Schumann, and I'm here on behalf of the Rocky Mountain ADA Center, which, if you're not familiar, we are one of 10 federally funded centers in the nation that provide information, training, and technical assistance on the Americans with Disabilities Act. We are strictly information. We're neither advocacy nor enforcement, and we're not the ADA police, so we're really just here to help. And we serve Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Utah. But we're so privileged that our home is here in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. So we're here really just to express our support for this plan, and we know it's a massive undertaking, and kudos to Brian and his team for doing such a good, thorough job. We've had a chance to look at the plan. Everything seems to be right on track, and we really just want to express also that we're here to help. We are available to answer questions, either from the team or from any of you commissioners, or from the public, anybody who would like to better understand their rights and responsibilities under the ADA.
Yep, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if anybody were wanting to contact you for any information, do you have a phone number that they can contact, or a website?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is rockymountainada.org, and they can reach us by calling 1-800-949-4232.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Maybe?
Questions from staff.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, Mr. Olson for questions. Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in going through the documentation, it seems to me like you went through a really extensive evaluation process of all of our facilities. I mean, every single building, you write down to measuring stuff, because some of the findings, I find it interesting, right, where we had attempted to accommodate an ADA requirement, let's say, for example, by a lower height shelf at a customer service window or something like that. And the requirement apparently is no higher than 36 inches, and we have a few that are like 39 inches. So they're 3 inches off. So it's actually on the list of requirements in here to get that addressed for full compliance. So even at some point in the past, we had worked on ADA compliance, making that lower shelf customer service table, but we didn't quite make it. Is that some of what these findings are? I mean, we measured these things tightly, it looks like.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate the question. The answer is yes, it's everything. And their evaluation is meticulous because our accountability is as such, our requirements. I can say that to make those repairs, a lot of them are, I can send a guy, a team to maybe to move a bar down, something like that. And we have a limited team too, but again, we prioritize these things and prioritize those too, that if, I don't mind saying, if it has to be moved an inch, would I do that one first, or would I go do a parking lot first? I do the parking lot first. But those are things that I want to say that's out there, and it's on the list, and it's got to be fixed. And we'll prioritize those and get those done. And to your question, your comment, and while we have a lot of lists and a lot of buildings, we're not done yet. We're still doing that, and we don't want to wait to do a transition plan wait till we finish, assessing all the buildings. It takes quite a bit of time, and buildings change, and so does requirements. So again, our promise is to continue that work and continue adding to the evaluations and the reports.
Okay, and then I appreciate that. And one other question, in certain circumstances, well, first of all, we record a lot of meetings, so we have recordings for those meetings because they're public meetings. So that's opportunities for other citizens to listen to those meetings. But for those that are hearing impaired, and some of them are recorded with video, so some might not be able to visually see the recording, do we offer a service that something like upon request, we can accommodate that impairment, whatever it is, or how do we deal with those kinds of issues?
That's a good question, Commissioner. A couple things I want to mention, and I appreciate PIO. They're working with closed caption and open caption, and they're working on different programs now. But if someone that saying they need interpreting services, they are to contact. They can contact Mr. Mejia as our ADA specialist to say, hey, there's a meeting happening and I'm going to be attending that meeting. I need those services. And we're obligated to do so. And happily we do so. So we have contracts with interpretation services as we have our interpreters here today.
Okay, outstanding. And since you mentioned a name, maybe we can get on the record, reiterate the name, and then how someone would contact that person to request those services. If you have that handy, maybe we can get that on the record. If it's in the documentation somewhere, that's great.
It is, and so I want to mention as people come forward and they do their review, we actually just created a new email address. It's EPC ADA correspondence at elpasoco.com. I'm going to say it one more time because it's a big one. EPC ADA correspondence at elpaso.com. So as the public and anyone who reviews this and has comments and things they want to make, please send it to that email. But again, Mr. Mejia is our so I'll have Mr. Mejia stand up. He's our ADA specialist, and he does a great job. Not only does he does it because that's his job, but he's got the heart to do it, and he does a great job at it, and it's because the right thing to do. So I appreciate him. And I appreciate, not to say I don't appreciate Joe and Vince as well, but they all do great.
So,
it's a hard job.
Mr. Mejia, we'd like you to, if you would, just go through the ADA Act for us right now and give us a detailed explanation. No, I'm kidding.
Do it on one foot. So Mr. Mejia can be reached at David Mejia, DAVIDMEJIA at elpasoco.com. He can be reached at 719-520-6866. And he is, if you go on our El Paso County website, it is listed in there under ADA as well. So,
thank you.
thank you, sir.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for Mr. Olson or any other staff members? Any other questions in general? Any discussion? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much for the update. Really appreciate
your
it.
time.
Appreciate all that we're doing to get ourselves to the maximum compliance possible. All right, we stand adjourned.